Hello and welcome to this brief presentation on the expenses solution for Infor SunSystems. What is expenses? It is a fully functional web-based personal expense management solution that can be deployed to all the users within your organisation in order to allow them to enter personal expense claims and then send these on for approval by their line management as needed. The system is seamlessly integrated to Infor SunSystems at a financial ledger level and allows for the understanding of concepts within SunSystems such as multiple business units, multi-currency, analysis codes, accounts, and journal definitions. The system allows for customizable item rules and the logic associated to these where required, and has workflow allowing for approval alerts to be passed off to approvers, notifying them that they have a claim to approve and allowing to act upon it within the solution. Due to its web-based interface, it is designed to have easy user adoption throughout your organisation, and it is a very quick implementation due to its inherent understanding of the SunSystems database. Why is expenses a good solution for your organisation? Expenses helps to meet your compliance requirements and offers a full audit trail of all personal expense claims that have been entered. It improves on accuracy and ensures that workflow and approval paths are always followed correctly. It is able to incorporate calculations, checks and logics around items that may be more unique to your organisation, as well as meeting statutory requirements. In the background, it has a real-time update into SunSystems for financial journal purposes, and it is also an easy addition for users who may already be using the IPOS e-procurement solution. The expenses solution can share approval matrices with IPOS if required. It can also be implemented as an entirely standalone solution. It is easy to use in a web-based interface and offers a very quick ROI in the area of personal expense management. So we're now going to show you a brief demonstration of the expenses solution for Infor SunSystems. The expenses solution can be accessed through a web URL from the desktop or any other area where you wish to place this link. Once you're ready to log in, you would log in as a user that has been defined for you by the administrator. This user is defined for personal expense use and is a member of different groups within the system that allows you to control access to expense functionality and also to administration functionality, which is fully web-based. I'm initially going to log in as a user called Ben Baker, who is a personal expense user with minimal functionality to raise a claim and submit this for approval. Once you've logged into the system, you are immediately presented with a graphical interface that shows you a summary of your previous expense claims and a breakdown of these by the items that you've been claiming and also by status. As you can see from this graph here, Ben has been raising a number of claims over time. He has a certain percentage that have been approved, a certain value that has been rejected, returned and submitted and awaiting approval. Over on the right hand side we can see the top 10 expense items by value. So over time, Ben has entered for different expense items, and you can see the value here represented within this graph. This graphical interface will be updated every time a user logs in, or indeed if you were to update it and refresh it using the recent claims functionality here. Below this, a grid is presented showing the recent claims that have been entered into the system by this user. You can also have a scenario where a user could be defined to have broader access and therefore could see claims for other users as well, depending on their permissions. In the grid, there are fields that are representative of fields that have been filled in on the claim and also statuses and the approvers where claims are awaiting approval. The grid is standard functionality and you are able to move fields around so you can customize it to your desire. You're also able to use the drop down to sort descending, to add or remove columns from the grid and also to apply filters such as equal to, contains and other things such as this. The grid in itself forms part of the self-service reporting functionality for a user. If you wish, you can also group columns within the grid by date or by claim type or by item. So for example, if I wanted to, I could group by expense date, drag this here, and I see a summary by date. This grid is a very flexible tool and allows you to browse through all of your expense claims over time. There is also a search functionality a user can interact with. In the claims drop-down at the top of the screen, you can activate the search option, and this allows users to then enter criteria based on any field within an expense claim and return these to the grid. Search functionality again can then lead to a grid that is customizable, and the ability to export that grid or print it off is capable and available as well. If we go back to the home screen, the little button on the top right hand side there, you can see at the top which business unit in SunSystems the user is logged into. This business unit can be defaulted for a user when they log in, and then if they wish to, they could actually jump between business units by clicking the options in the expense drop down. There are controls available to prevent a user from moving between different business units if this is something that will be important to you. There is also a logout function in this area. There is an on-screen help for expenses that any user can access, and the contents allows us to go and look for information about standard expenses configuration or setup. You can browse through the information within here if you wish. You can also use an index or a search function if required. So if we now return back to the home screen, this will then take us back to the main interface. In order to raise a claim, you would click the claim drop-down screen and then click New. This would open a new claim header. On the claim header, you have the claim number, the overall total amount depending on the number of lines in the claim, and the option to choose the default currency code. You can also default the currency code based on the user ID. In this case, Ben has been defaulted to GBP entry. If you hit the drop down here, you can choose to change the currency code for the whole claim that you're going to add, although you can also do this at a line level. The system interacts with SunSystems currency conversion, allows you to pick up currencies that have been defined within SunSystems, and when you choose a currency, if it posts that back to the SunSystems ledger, it will then automatically convert it at the correct rate using period or daily rates as defined in SunSystems. In order to enter a line, all I need to do is click New. This will then open a form where I can fill in the details of the line. In the expenses module, any field that is compulsory will be highlighted with a red border. You can see here that my purchase account, my description, my item code has been defined as compulsory. We define items within the system depending on the personal expense items that you wish your organisation to have access to. Each user can also be defined to have access to only certain items if this is required. Within the drop down here, you are able to use a search function to find items based on the description or on the code. You can also use filters within each of these fields of the contains, equals, doesn't contain nature in order to find items if you're not sure what is available. In this case, I'm going to choose to enter a bus and train travel expense item. When I do this, you can see that the system will automatically fill in the description based on the item code, and additionally it will fill in the purchasing account that has been associated to this in the background. It is possible to customize the screen to remove some of these fields if you do not require them on the claim form. I'm going to change the description here to say client bus travel, and then below this you can see that it is already defaulting in my GBP currency. It's also defaulted my tax code based on the item. The tax code can be changed, again based on the SunSystems defined tax analysis codes. If you set up a new code within SunSystems, this becomes available within the expense solution, and the tax rates and accounts are associated to those defined within SunSystems. For each item, a number of fields can be defined, and additional fields can also be set up if extra logic may be required. In this case, it is a relatively standard item. I'm going to enter an amount, £4.50, and this will automatically work out the fact that it is associated to the GBP base amount of the business unit. The exchange rate is 1 as this is the base account. I am also able, for an account, if I wish, to associate a client to this. If I'm going to reimburse my claim against a certain client account and I wish to have postings into the ledger associated to this, you can have the client accounts field active for an item. I'm not going to do this in this case. Once I've filled in the line, I do have a number of options on the left hand side to decide whether it is tax inclusive, reimbursable, overseas, and again additional logic could be built into this based on the item if you needed something beyond the standard that could be deployed. For this line, I also have a number of other options. Obviously the cost allocation associated to this can be defaulted, and this allocation is coming from the SunSystems analysis records. Within my business unit, I have ledger analysis set up of product type, department, project, etc., and I've defined that these should be available on a claim line. I have a default set of codes being pushed in here based on the user ID, but I could still go and choose to use a different analysis code based on those defined in SunSystems if I wish to code this against a particular project or a particular department or something similar. Moving across, we can also categorise expense claims. It is possible to define expense analysis within the solution that allows us to categorise different items, different claims in certain ways, and this can be used to enhance reporting. You can see that I've set up a number of items here that are categorised based on this in the background. In this case, I may want to choose that it's a travel claim and say it was travel or client travel or something like this, and this would then be associated to the journal and the reporting in the background. This is an entirely optional function that you do not have to use if you do not require it. Each claim line can have a comment, travel to the demo client, and this will then be associated to the claim line and part of the audit trail and can be seen by the approvers down the road. Each claim line can also have an attachment, and this attachment typically could be a receipt or some part of the information required in order to approve the claim properly. If I then close this attachment area, I don't want to attach anything to this particular claim, but I could do. I can then save the line. Once I've saved the line, it is possible to then go and submit it if I wish to, or I could delete it or cancel depending on what was required. I may continue to add new lines to my claim, and this could lead to a claim with as many lines as you may require. I'm going to enter one with consumables. Paper. I could have a cost associated to it, but I'm not going to, just to add some cost. Again, leave it very simple, won't put a comment in this case, and I'm going to save the line. For more complex items that may require logic, there is a customization function within the system that allows the implementation to include defining of that logic and building extra fields associated to the item. In this case, I'm going to add a line for mileage. If I go in here, choose my mileage item, which I've set up as the last item in my list, this will then change the fields that are available on the screen. When I click on the description, you'll see that we now have the total miles, we have the number of passengers, we also have an option for van or car or motorcycle travel, and a total year-to-date number of miles for this particular user. This allows us to report against statutory requirements for VAT reporting. In this case, you do not put in an amount, since we've defined as part of the logic the rate per mile that will be applicable, so I'm just going to put in 50 miles. When I do this, you'll see that it will work out the value. I'm going to add the number of passengers. This could be something you may require, and it could be made a compulsory field. And once this is done, the system will work out the value for me based on the rate per mile. When I save the line, that will now be added into the system. Another option could be something such as an entertainment claim, where you need to record the number of people that you're entertaining, maybe some descriptions or names, things such as this. So if I add another line, in this case I'm going to choose client entertainment as my option, and when I click on the description you'll see that it now asks for the number of employees included. So I'm going to say 2 employees and £45. It's working out my rate and my tax based on that. So this is the standard operating ability for entering a claim into the expenses solution. Obviously, if you wanted to use comments, if you wanted to use attachments for receipts, this is very strong functionality, and it leads to a smooth, easy approval process whereby all users' receipts can be reviewed properly and they can be ensured as being compliant with any internal controls. Now I've created my claim, I'm going to submit it, and this will now pass it on for approval. If I click recent claims, you will now see that these lines have been pushed through the system, and it's picked up based on the approval matrix that the next approver could be Nelson Norton. This could be my line manager based on my department code. It could be different people based on the category of the expense item, maybe other analysis functions, the P&L account, or indeed value. And we can have up to 3 layers of approval depending on what is required. At this stage, I'm now going to log out as Ben Baker and go and approve this as Nelson Norton. Expenses supports workflow alerts, and these can be generated using an email. So in this case, an email would have been sent to Nelson notifying him that he has a new claim to approve, and this would contain a URL link that he could click in order to pass back into the system using Windows authentication if needed, and take him directly to the approval area. I'm not going to do this. What I'm going to do is log in as Nelson, and from here I'm going to be able to go and have a look at those claims that are awaiting my action. On Nelson's screen, he can see the same sort of graphical interface. He can see his own claims and other people's claims he may have access to. But from the drop down at the top here, we can see that there is now an approval option available based on his group permissions. When I click Approve, we're then presented with a list of the claims that have been passed through for approval. Each field is visible within the grid, and again you have the option as an approver to move this grid around, alter the columns, group by user, group by description, etc. There is a lot of information here that may be enough to provide you with a decision point as to whether you're going to approve this or not. You may also have a look at claims that potentially have other options on them, such as attachments and things such as this, and you could open the claim and have a look at it at this stage. In this case, I'm going to click one of these, Ben Baker, the travel and accommodation, and I'm going to approve it. And this will then pass it on up the chain to the next level of approval, or it will be fully approved and lead on to the posting into SunSystems. For this line, I'm going to reject it, and this then forces me to enter a reason, and this will return another workflow alert back to Ben, notifying him that there's been a rejection. This will be via email. He could then go and have a look in the interface to see that rejected claim. Rejected claims do stay within the solution and are part of the audit trail. In this case, I'm going to reject it by saying not allowed this month. Once I've entered my comment, say OK, and the line will disappear. A similar function is available in the form of a return. In this case, I could say more description needed. This would return it to Ben, again with an alert. He could alter the information in the claim and resubmit it for approval or delete it, depending on what he wanted to do. Finally, I'm going to return this claim. You can approve multiple lines at the same time by clicking and selecting on multiple boxes, and you are also able to do a full group select or unselect if required. All claims are dealt with at the line level, so I could, if I wished, to have grouped that by a claim ID, so I could see one claim, and then do a multi-approve on all things in one claim. One line being rejected does not mean that the rest of the lines do not go through for approval if that's the way the approver wishes to act. For this last line, I'm going to approve it, and at this stage he's completed the tasks as an approver. I'm now going to log out as Nelson Norton. We're now going to log back in as Ben in order to see the results of that approval action taken by Nelson. When Ben logs back in, he can now see in his recent claim list that there is one line here that has been returned by Nelson. If he wishes, he could go and open that claim, have a look at it, make some changes and resubmit it. Some have been rejected, some have been approved. You can see that the return is still classed as being with Nelson, therefore I could change it and resubmit it, whereas the rejection is actually now killed dead and you're unable to make any changes. I'm now going to log out as Ben, and we'll have a brief look at the administration function within the system. If I log in as a user called admin, this will now allow me to log in as a user who has broader rights and that has access to the maintenance function. Again, this is all driven by user groups. If I hit the drop down here, we can see that we can administer user groups, users within the system, create those users, assign them permissions and assign them to groups. We can also set up approval groups which can act at each layer, and that could be individuals or multiple users, and we can define approval matrices to drive workflow through the system. Within here we can define items, item codes and categories, and also posting rules for how journals would be posted into SunSystems. If we wish to customize the fields on an item, we can go into a particular item within the system and then go and add fields and field logic as required. The expense solution is very flexible. It is also very easy to implement and can be as up and running in as little as 10 days or less depending on your requirements. I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration. It has given you a taster of what can be done with the expenses solution for Infor SunSystems. Should you require any further information though, please feel free to contact your SunSystems partner or Professional Advantage, who will be happy to help you.